Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tanya and this is Busy Book Reader. Today I'm going to share with you some of my favorite nonfiction books. Nonfiction is one of my favorite genres. This is part one. I'll be having at least 2 or 3 of these and maybe even more as I get more books. Without further ado, let's get started. The first book I have for you is kind of a mother-daughter memoir. They wrote it together. This book was published in 2006. It is called Come Back: A Mother and Daughter's Journey Through Hell and Back. This is by Claire Fontaine and Mia Fontaine. Claire is the mother and Mia is the daughter. This is really a story about a mother-daughter relationship. It deals with things such as teen runaway, drug abuse, addiction, recovery, and overall the main thing that I get out of this is just love. It goes back and forth between Mia's story and Claire's story. Mia was kind of a rebellious teen, to say the least, but you know, being a mother of 2 daughters myself, I really enjoyed this book. Reading the very first sentence, it just says, "It is its own religion, this love, uncontainable, savage, and without end. It is what I feel for my child." And I read that and I was like, yep, she said it. That's what it's like. A really good recommendation if you're looking for a strong mother-daughter relationship that's not perfect, but endures no matter what. The second book I have for you is a very popular read. You might have even read it yourself. It's very scientific, and yet it also delves into race issues, and that book is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Sloot. This book is fascinating. I read the concept and I was like, well, that sounds pretty good. It's about a woman named Henrietta Lacks. In 1951, she was a tobacco farmer, had little to no money, couldn't get any good health care, went to the doctor, finds out she has cervical cancer, and later on passes away. Now, without her knowledge and without any of her family's knowledge, the doctors at Johns Hopkins have some of Henrietta's cells and they start to reproduce them. And these are the first cells that are able to be reproduced in a lab. These cells lead to lots of medical breakthroughs, helps with the polio vaccine, cancer research. Her cells are still alive today. If you go into any lab, any pathology lab, medical lab across the country, across the world, you will see what they call HeLa cells for Henrietta Lacks. It not only tells the story of how immoral it was that they took these cells without her knowing. I work in the medical field and I cannot imagine something like this happening today. One of the things that the author did, which was really cool, is the author included her family a lot in this, and her daughter, Henrietta's youngest daughter, actually goes through this journey with the author to find out more about her mom, to find out how these cells are still being used. And it's really sad because Henrietta's family is suffering from some of these conditions that Henrietta's cells are helping other people to overcome, but they can't afford health insurance themselves. And it's just a really fascinating read. It has pictures from Henrietta's life. It has pictures of her family. The scientific talk is really thorough but very easy to understand. The author was really able to really humanize the issue, the medical side and the ethical side, and really bring it into light. It was a great read and I highly recommend this book. My next recommendation for you is a bit dated. I'm gonna make that statement now. I'm just gonna get that out there. This is from 1999. The topics that it discusses are still very relevant. However, some of the wording and phrases maybe just might be kind of outdated. But this is a book I really enjoyed in my later teenage years, and that is called Ophelia Speaks by Sarah Chandler. So this is a collection of stories, essays, from different girls across the U.S. from all different backgrounds, different races, different cultures, different religions, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And it just talks about everything from boys to friendships with women, family, death, sex, all these things that as a young girl are very confusing. And the author Sarah has little discussions and little blurbs before and after each of the stories that have been contributed into this. When I was a young adult, late teen, I read this book over and over, and it brought me so much comfort. If it talks about when friends die, it's, you know, diverse sexualities, talks about school, things that are tough in life. I have notes in here from when I first read it, and I bought this book brand new when it first came out, and I sent it to my friend, and I would just read this one. And, you know, I have all my different, still have all my stickers in here from 1999, which was a long time ago. The stories are written from girls that are between the ages of 12 and 18. Very trying time for most people, not only girls, but for boys as well. I don't think that boys would really relate to this too much. It might give you some insight into the way girls think, which might be a helpful, good thing. But other than that, I really recommend this. I definitely plan to pass this on to my daughters when they are in this age group, and I really hope that they enjoy it as much as I did. Alright, after this next book, you guys are going to start to see a theme. There's definitely a theme with my nonfiction, and I obtained these books all kind of within the same time period, and there were some life events that happened that brought me to these books. The next book is called Stiff by Mary Roach. This is The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. This book is so awesome. I am very interested in what happens to us after we die, not from a religious or spiritual standpoint, but from a physical standpoint. What happens to our bodies? How do they decompose? What happens if you donate your body to science? Do we all just go to a medical lab and students start cutting us open? No, we do not, and I found out because of this book. Yes, you may go to a university and be studied. You may donate your organs, but you may also be thrown into a car and used as a crash test dummy. It's very intriguing to me to find out what people do with dead bodies. We can learn so much from the way that our bodies decompose, and that's another element in this book. It's not very scientific, but it's very factual, and I just found this book fascinating. I actually do plan to reread this year. I want to read it again. It's been like 5 years or so since I read this book. This book is really awesome. If you have any interest in what happens to bodies after they die, after they are given away to science, I highly recommend this book. But just be warned that it does deal with death. It can be a little gruesome at times. Some people find that stuff kind of hard to stomach. I, however, do not, obviously. Along the same lines, I have the next book for you, and this book is called Death's Acre. Inside the legendary forensic lab, The Body Farm, where the dead do tell tales. This is written by Dr. Bill Bass and John Jefferson. This book is, again, a really cool book about what happens to us after we die, but this book focuses on Dr. Bill Bass, who is the founder of The Body Farm. It's a piece of land by the University of Tennessee Medical Center. He is like the leader in forensic anthropology. So he has all these bodies that people are donating, and he is able to put them out into the elements, put them out into the woods, and see how fast, how quickly it decomposes, how much moisture is in the air, what bugs come around and start gnawing on our decaying bodies. What happens if there's a tarp thrown over the body? Does that slow down the process? How do your bones look after a certain number of years? What's really left? It was just so awesome. I am very much into forensics, and not so much like the blood splatter and all that stuff, but more of the bodies, how they're laying, how they're decomposing. I sound like a really big weirdo right now, but it just fascinates me, and I love that how much we can learn from a corpse, and that just because you can't speak anymore, you can't tell us what happened, we can still find out. And it's thanks to people like Dr. Bill Bass, who have spent their entire lifetime studying these types of things that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do because they just can't handle it, they can't stomach it. But we want answers, and these are the kind of people who help provide those answers. So again, this book is awesome. He's actually gone on to write some fiction books kind of based on all of his forensic anthropology, and I really enjoy those as well. Our last book is a book that is so near and dear to my heart. This was one of those books that changed the way I think about life. It's one of those books that I reread. I read it every year. I just can't get enough of it, even though it has a very dark issue at heart, and that is the issue is grief. And the book I'm talking about is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. This book is just, oh, it's so good. Like I said, I read it at least once a year. This is a memoir type book about her, and it starts out about her and her husband. He suffers a heart attack right in front of her, dies right in front of her, and it's kind of how she carries on after his death. On a personal note, I lost a husband in 2004, and while my story is very different than Joan Didion's story, the underlying grief that you feel and some of the emotions, she was able to put things into words that I can't. There are things that people ask, how did you get through this, or how did you feel about this? And I can't even speak. I don't know how I got through that. And I read this book and I'm like, yes, she got it. Like that's what makes her such a great writer and such a great author. She's able to put into words feelings that I didn't even know I had. And while dealing with her husband's death, she's also dealing with the illness of a daughter who is on life support. And this woman, she's just amazing. And people, will ask me how I went through my thing and came out, and I'm still okay. I'm still functioning. I'm still here. I'm still raising a family and making YouTube videos. And she, people can persevere after a loss. And this is a great example of that, but it's also a great example of how it changes your life forever in ways that people who, fortunately for them, have never suffered a loss that big will never know, because they've just never been through anything like that. And they can speculate, and you can kind of think, yeah, I understand how that can happen, but until it happens to you, you really can't. And it's nice, even though I'm just reading this from one woman's perspective, it's really nice to have somebody to share those feelings with. So on that note, those are my nonfiction recommendations for part 1. I will have more parts to this video. I'd like to know if you guys have read any of these books, if you're into all this creepy, crazy death stuff like I am. If you have any recommendations for me, I'd love that as well. Leave me a comment, click subscribe. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!